Yo. So, I'm a massive nerd. And I like nerd like tabletop role-playing games, right? I just think getting to play a game in person with friends has been such a fun experience ever since the first time I tried it. Even if it is fucking nerd. It's just so cool that you get to have an entire world at your creative fingertips, and you can form it in any specific way you desire as a game master. And as a player, you get to watch the soul leak from your buddy's eyes as you abandon all of his side quests to search for the most feminine men in the village. This is definitely not a call-out post on anyone in specific. And on the other half of this two-sided intro that leads exactly where you already think it's going to, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of my favorite collections of stories and characters I've ever had the pleasure to read or watch. This series is a vast cast of characters and a decent chunk of lore and universal concepts to explore as a fan. So naturally, as a massive nerd with an obsessive passion for the series and games that I love, I wanted nothing more than to create stories for me and my friends to play in the two universes of JoJo. Today, I hope I can share with you this concept for a JoJo's Bizarre TTRPG kind of game. Maybe you can play it with your friends and help me expand by perfecting it with practice and play. I really hope we can get it to be somewhere that's really cool and fun to play. I'll go ahead and admit that most of this is character creation, as I personally see that as like the most important aspect of creating a game like this, where you can play as any kind of character that you want. I also want to get into explaining how combat and items would work in this, since obviously fighting is a big part of not just JoJo's, but most shonen battle series. Alright, I think that's all the basic intro setup that I wanted to get out of the way before we hop right into like the main meat of this. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so before we get into anything, I want to go ahead and start off by clarifying that there are going to be some character aspects that just simply cannot be mixed due to the multiple phenomena of the JoJo universe coming from either the original universe or the Steel Ball Run universe. And obviously, with them being separate, some things aren't going to be mixed. So, like, as cool as I might think a spin-using zombie is, I just don't think that would work in canon. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that there that I'm not going to take any of that into consideration, really. Alright, so the character races I have set out are human, vampire, zombie, pillarman, and rock human. These races all have their own abilities and limitations that the others do not have. Firstly, humans, as a bonus action, can create a tool or trap out of items in their inventory or within arm's reach. This skill just requires the user to pass an intelligence check, which I'll get all the stats and all that kind of stuff later. Vampires, as a passive effect, cannot be killed or disabled by any attack except for those which attack the head specifically. Vampires are also able to be permanently damaged by actions with an active Hamon counter, which I'll also get into in the classes section. Actions that are actively involving fire or any contact with the sunlight or UV lights. To display their strength as primary action, vampires can attack with their limbs to drain blood from a target. It's just 1d20. That's both the damage dealt and the health regain. Zombies have the same passive restrictions as vampires, except they can be damaged and dismembered by any attack. Zombies can also drain blood as primary action, but it's a d12 instead of a d20 like the vampires. Pillarmen cannot be killed unless their brain specifically is destroyed. They can also not be disabled by any attacks unless it has an active Hamon counter or it involves UV lights or the sun's light. As a reaction, a Pillarman can deform their own body to avoid an oncoming attack, which is a precision check. Lastly, rock humans have no special restrictions or requirements, but they can, as a bonus action, harden a single part of their body to defend from all attacks weaker than their durability check for this move until the next turn. These races cannot coexist in one character, and you have to change from one to the other if it's at all possible for them to change. So, like, if you're a human, you have to change to a zombie or a vampire, which I think are the only two options, really, for, like, changing your race. And once you change, you don't have any access to your previous skills. Alright, next is the long part. Okay, to start off with, each class can be leveled up to a max level of 5 and gains a new skill to use for each level gain. With each level, a player can also create a new action or attack as long as it fits with their currently known abilities and does not overlap with future skills they don't have yet. For example, a Hamon user cannot make an action that involves a form of Zoom Punch if they have not yet learned Zoom Punch. Multi-classing will also be covered after each class is introduced, so please hang tight for that and I'll get right into it. First is the most basic class for any race, which is the standard fighter. This class has different abilities learned for each level based on the user's current race, and you can kind of see it as like the most basic form of each. So like, this is your Speedwagons or Part 1 DOs. For the human fighters, first level 1 is simply weapon. The user gains an additional weapon on top of their initial items from character creation, which I'll get on that later. Level 2 is Weapon Master. The user selects the weapon type currently on their inventory, and they gain advantage on all actions that require that weapon. Level 3 is a choice between Trapping Trickster and Honorable Knight. Trapping Trickster, say that 5 times fast, gives all traps created by the user imperceptibility if the user passes an intelligence check. Honorable Knight gives the user the reaction to not become staggered or disabled after an attack on them if they pass a resolve check. Level 4 is another use of Weapon Master, and level 5 is the reaction Human Spirit. Once per campaign, when a player's health reaches 0, they can instead drop to 1 and gain advantage on their next roll if they pass a resolve check. Next is Vampire Fighter. This one's going to be pretty simple. Level 1 is Ability Gain, which gives the user a new vampiric ability such as Vaporizing Freezing Technique, Fusion Grafting, Hypnosis, Space Ripper Stingy Eyes, Flesh Bud, Zombie Creation, Vampire Creation, so on and so forth. Level 2 is another use of Ability Gain, and Level 3 is Ability Mastery, which gives advantage to one of your vampiric abilities whenever you use it. Level 4 is Ability Gain again, and Level 5 is another use of Ability Mastery. This way, it just kind of lets you build the vampire fighter that you want to specialize in, kind of like how Dio was sort of all around, where he used all of his abilities, with no specific mastery in any of them, it seemed like, and Straizo was pretty much just using his super strength and his Space Ripper Stingy Eyes ability. Next is the Zombie Fighter. Level 1 gives Weapon Incorporation, which allows the player to choose a weapon in their inventory and treat it as an extension of the user's body when used. Because it is. Level 2 is Weird Body. This gives the player the ability to extend one of their body parts by a max of 4 feet as a primary action, which is a range check. Level 3 is a choice between Undead Swindler and Corpse Brute. Swindler is the primary action to rearrange the character's facial structure for 1d4 turns and is a charisma check. Brute gives advantage on the player's blood draining move. Level 4 is another Weapon Incorporation, and Level 5 is Concealed Presence. As a primary action, a zombie can blend in perfectly with their environment to become imperceptible if they pass a perception check. Now is Pillarman Fighter. Level 1 is Absorption, which is the primary action to allow the user to absorb any living being into their form and replenish their health sum, which is a durability check. The health gained from this move is half of the target's current health. Level 2 is Body Manipulation. This gives the user the ability to treat any of their attacks as any damage type whatsoever. Level 3 is Element Mode. This is the primary ability we see throughout most of Part 2. The player can create an elemental battle mode that they can access as a bonus action. While active, the user will have advantage on one of their physical stats, but must pass a stamina check each turn or their mode will be disabled. Also, they cannot use their body manipulation ability while in this mode. The next level 4, Body Master, pretty much just allows the use of body manipulation while in your element mode. Level 5, Pillar Form, allows the user to merge with any natural rock formation for 1d6 turns and gains 10 HP for each turn they spend in rock formation. Lastly, we have Rock Human Fighter. Level 1 is Full Body Rock. As a primary action, the player can coat their entire body in rock but is unable to move until the next turn. This defends against all attacks weaker than the durability check for this move. Level 2 is Rocky Camouflage, which, as a primary action, a player can blend in with their environment as a rock, which is an intelligence check for 1d4 turns. Level 3 is the passive ability Beauty of Nature, which gives a player perception and intelligence advantage when inspecting a natural setting, such as a forest or rock formation. Level 4 is Unbreakable Stance or Rocky Counter. Stance is a primary action which makes a player invincible to all blunt damage type attacks until the next turn, and is a stamina check. Counter is a reaction that allows a player to reflexively harden a part of their body instantly and a speed check. Level 5, Blessings of the Earth, is a once per campaign primary action. This skill allows the user to locate a nearby Blessing of the Earth, which is a resolve check. These Blessings of the Earth have their own unique abilities depending on the Game Master's discretion. Now these skills should allow a person to play an average member of each race and give them a fighting chance against other supernatural classes. Next is the Hamon user class, which is obviously used by characters who have learned how to create ripple energy by controlling their breathing. In this system, I want to represent Hamon energy with ripple counters. A ripple counter can be gained each turn. If you're a healthy Hamon user at max HP, you get one automatically. But if you're not, you have to pass a stamina check if the user's health isn't at full. Also, as a bonus action for any non-undead players, so pretty much anyone who isn't a vampire, zombie, or pillarman, they can use any amount of ripple counters on them to restore 10 HP for each counter used. A healthy Hamon user always has 5 counters on them when not in combat or when starting an encounter. Hamon users will gain the following skills in this order. Level 1 is Hamon Coat. This allows the user to place a ripple counter on themselves and any items they are currently holding as a bonus action. Items such as plant life, natural materials, or liquids can maintain a ripple counter after leaving the user's grasp, while others such as metal and stone must maintain constant contact with the user or they will lose the ripple counter. This action requires a stamina check. Attacks with an active ripple counter gain plus 3 damage for each counter on it. Level 2 Zoom Punch is a primary action that allows the user to attack with an arm extended by 3 feet at most. This action requires 1 ripple counter and is a range check. 3 is Sendo Wave, another primary action that requires 2 ripple counters and also a range check. This attack imbues Hamon into the user's environment in a 10-foot radius, affecting all within it. Level 4 is Hamon Overdrive. This is a primary action that requires 3 ripple counters and is a strength check. This is simply a very strong attack utilizing a user's limbs or a weapon. This also allows the user to make their own unique overdrive attacks from this point onward. Lastly is Level 5, Sendo Insight. This primary action allows the user to spend 5 ripple counters to see the future of a person they are currently touching. This insight comes from the game master or player depending on what would be the most appropriate. This action also requires a perception check on top of everything. These skills should give the player the setup they need to create their own variations on the basic moves that come with every Hamon user seen across the series. I really wanted to focus on the player's individuality when creating the system, so one player could focus on being a battle medic, while another could be more of a paladin or a rogue depending on how they want to utilize the ripple counters. Alright, now we have the big one, stand users. And I gotta say, this one was probably the most tricky since I've had to cover the endless types of stands and stand abilities that could be invented by players, which is god long. First off, I want to say that to help with the vast amount of abilities that someone can create, I made different categories to fit stands into to make level up a little easier. The first category is power types. These are just stands that focus on dealing high damage really quickly. These stands also often have shorter range and higher precision and or speed. Stands that would fit into this category would be Star Platinum, The Hand, White Album, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Scary Monsters, and Nut King Cole. Next is long range remote stands. These are stands that can operate far away from the user while still under their direct control. These stands commonly have low power but make up for it with their incredibly long range. Stands like this are Hierophant Green, Highway Star, my personal favorite, Aerosmith, Manhattan Transfer, Paisley Park, and King Nothing. Now we have remote stands. Stands that activate based on a certain condition and carry out their tasks without the direct control of the user or, for most part, knowledge of the user too. These stands can have high power, speed, and range, but also very commonly have low precision and potential due to the lack of control the user has over their own stand. Stands like this type are Sheer Heart Attack, Cheap Trick, Black Sabbath, Highway to Hell, Sugar Mountain, and Born This Way. And last we have utility stands. This category is meant to incorporate most stands that don't fit into the other groups, so anything like materialized stands, psychological assault stands, phenomena stands, and really anything else like that. Stands that could fit into this group are Hermit Purple, Surface, Talking Head, Survivor, Tattoo You, Chocolate Disco, California King Bed, or Les Feuilles? I don't know, the Spinning Leaf stand from Shakedown Road. I think these categories help to simplify the capabilities of each type of stand, and they can also be used to make it easier for everyone to deal with the wider range of different abilities someone can come up with. And with all that preface out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the skills this class can learn. First is basic form, which allows the player to act with their stand as a primary action. These actions are the same as the user's options during their turn, but the stand can also use their ability. At level 1, a player only knows the basic tenets of their abilities and doesn't know the exact limitations of their stand. Level 2, Ability Known, is a passive and simply gives the player full knowledge of their stand's strengths and limitations. Players can also form more complex actions with their abilities and stand. Level 3's Skill differs depending on the user's stand type. These skills are Stand Rush for power types, Stand Scout for long-range remote types, Stand Bluff for automatic types, and Concealed Stand for utility types. Stand Rush is a primary attack that allows the stand to attack with a flurry of punches, kicks, or any item they're holding. This attack type is always a speed check, but the specifics can be changed and modified to just the number of targets. This is pretty much the basic, punch rush that you see with most protagonists throughout the series. Stand Scout is a primary action that allows a stand user to instantly send their stand to the maximum distance from the user. This is a range check. Stand Bluff is another primary action that allows a user to attempt to trick its opponents into believing that their stand works differently than the way it actually does. This is a charisma check for the user, and each opponent must make an intelligence saving throw. And lastly is Concealed Stand, which is another primary action that allows the user to activate their stand or stand ability without being noticed, and this is a precision check which is based on the stand stat. Now on to level 4, which is Ability Mastery, which gives the user a once per encounter advantage to when activating their stand ability. And level 5 is Stand Evolution. Now this is one that I don't think most players should be allowed to reach just because how unique and special it is. I think it should be something saved for whenever it's really important, like fighting a main antagonist or something. This gives a once per campaign action to allow the user to evolve their stand if they pass a resolve check. And that's it for stand users. Given how variable the stands of the series are, I think I did an alright job trying to turn the idea into a system that can give unique abilities for each type of stand, while still trying to keep it unique for each one. Lastly is the spin user class, and I'm going to be honest again on this one, it was really hard to make this one work. And it's not for the same reasons stand users, where you can have a wide array of different abilities that you can use, but it's because this one doesn't have a lot of information tied to it. To put this in perspective, the original universe, we have 8 Haman users that we can see using the Ripple in its traditional form throughout the series. And we see 2 stands that develop from these users, which are both similar to each other, so it kind of leads me to the idea that Haman users will develop similar stands. In the Steel Ball Run universe, we only see 2 characters use the spin in its intended form, and 1 example of a stand developed by a spin user. This is all just me trying to pretty much cover my because I know I'm going to have people disagree with me on this one, just because I think everyone has their own idea of the way that spin works in this universe, and I'm not saying that mine is the correct way, I'm just saying this is how I see it working out. Now, to get into it, spin users also use a counter system similar to Haman users, but it's rotation counters. These can be placed on any item to increase its damage output by 5 points and give it a speed advantage. A rotation counter can be used up to change a projectile's trajectory mid-flight. Unlike ripple counters, rotation counters are not stored on the user and are simply pulled forth by using the skills learned by the class. Alright, now let's get into said skills. The first and most important ability for spin users is Basic Spin. This is a bonus action that allows the user to place 1 rotation counter on an item. And I already said before what rotation counters can do for an item. Level 2 is either Object Return or Medical Spin. Object Return allows the user to use up a Haman counter. What? My bad. A rotation counter to have the projectile return to the user after being used, and is a precision check. Medical Spin allows the user to use up a rotation counter to repair one of the target's disabled limbs and restore 5 HP. This bonus action is an intelligence check. Level 3 is Golden Spin, which is an enhanced form of Basic Spin where if a precision check is passed, the user can instead place 2 rotation counters on an item as a bonus action. Level 4 is another multiple choice between Spinning Contortion, Spinning Sniper, and Spin Standoff. Spinning Contortion is a bonus action that allows the player to use up a rotation counter to manipulate one of their target's limbs to perform a simple action and is an intelligence check. Spinning Sniper gives the player advantage when attacking a target from 35 feet away or farther. Spin Standoff is kind of the opposite of that. It gives the player advantage when attacking a target one-on-one within 15 feet of each other, cowboy style. Lastly, level 5 is the ultimate form of the spin, Super Spin. This is a primary action that requires the user to pass both a perception check and actively be riding a horse or animal of similar size and build. Steel ball users gain access to the ball breaker technique, and any other spin users will spontaneously develop a stand or evolve their current stand. And like I kind of said for Hamon users, I really wanted to find a way where people could play as spin users and have multiple different roles they could fill if they wanted to. So like, obviously for the spinning sniper and spin standoff, that's your choice between getting to play a sniper kind of character or a cowboy, and I also threw in some medical options if you wanted to play that route. Alright, now for the multi-classing rules. These are mostly just based on in-lore stuff, and it really doesn't have a effect on your stats or anything. It just kind of affects what abilities you can learn and what you can do with your abilities. Firstly, I want to say that a character with multiple classes can only level up one class at a time whenever they reach their level up point. So like if you're a Hamon user and a stand user, you can only pick one to improve at a time. You can't pick, you'll have to pick one. You can't pick both of them to level up. And you can still only create one unique action per level. First is fighter to any other class. If a fighter becomes any other class whatsoever, they will no longer be able to level up their fighter class, but will still be able to use their already unlocked fighter skills. Hamon user to a stand user. A Hamon user of level 2 or higher that develops a stand will develop a utility stand similar to Hermit Purple used by Joseph and Jonathan in Part 3. These stands will often form as long tendril objects such as wires, vines, rope, so on and so forth. And the stand will be able to perfectly contain Hamon, meaning that Hamon counters put on this stand will last until it's used up. Stands like this often have abilities related to divination of some kind, but they're known to differ from time to time. And the opposite of that would be stand users that become Hamon users, which they'll be able to learn new Hamon techniques, but will not be able to transfer Hamon counters onto their stand, unless they're in physical contact with their stand. Steel ball spin users that become stand users will gain a stand that is directly tied to the use of their steel balls. These are often utility stands, similar to Gyro's scan ability from early Part 7. And the most common activation for these kind of abilities is for the user's steel balls to make contact with the target. Other spin users that become stand users will develop a stand that gives them a focus for their use of the spin. These stands will act as a conduit for the spin or have an ability that creates conduits for the spin. Kind of like Johnny's tusk from Part 7, how it created or it allowed him to spin his fingernails freely. That is the conduit it invented for him to use the spin since he wasn't already focused spin user. If a stand user becomes a spin user, much like with Hamon users, they will be able to access new spin techniques but will not be able to place rotation counters through their stand. And I think that's all I have for the different rules and abilities that each class has with each other. Overall, I think this system works. It really fits with the canon, or at least how I see the canon. At least I try to make it fit. I think it also allows for some freedom, depending on how you want to play your character. I also want to say that obviously a player cannot be both a Hamon user and a spin user at the same time, because these concepts exist in different universes and they cannot be used by the same character at the same time. On top of that, some classes and races are also simply incompatible. Undead races like vampires, zombies, and pillarmen cannot be functioning stand users under normal circumstances, as they will combust if even they place a single Hamon counter on themselves. Here I want to cover how stats will affect a character and how they balance out when character creating. First, I want to say that these stats are split in a few different ways, with the first being between character stats which apply to the character themselves and stand stats which apply to the character's stand. The second form of separation is that the character stats are divided between physical stats, which measure the physical aptitude of a character, and mental stats, which measure the mental acuity of the character. The character stats are balanced out by having each stat be placed in pairs that even each other out. The way this works is when a character is being created, a player can choose to have advantage or double advantage in that stat. When single advantage is chosen, the opposite stat is left neutral, and when double advantage is selected, the opposite stat is disadvantaged. Each stat and their opposites are strength, a measure of a player's ability to inflict damage and carry heavy objects, and his opposite range, a measure of a character's ability to act successfully at long distances. Next is speed, which is the character's ability to act and move quickly, and durability, the character's ability to defend from attacks. Stamina is a character's tolerance to act for a long amount of time without much rest, and precision is the measure of a character's level to focus on a single point. Now the mental stats. Intelligence, which is the player's wealth of knowledge, and charisma, which is the character's ability to convince others. Last is resolve, the character's determination to never give up on their goals, and perception, the character's level of observation of their environment. The stand stats are measured independently from each other, but are up to the scrutiny of the game master if he sees a stand being kind of unbalanced. The stand stats are the same as they are in the series and are measured the same. Power, speed, range, durability, precision, and potential. Stands with an A in the stat are treated as advantage, and E are treated as disadvantaged. Some of the stats have numbers tied to them based on the stat's effectiveness. Strength and durability for a character are measured as 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25, going from double disadvantage to double advantage, with neutral in between. Stand power and durability is measured the same way, but is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 from E to A. Range for characters is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 feet or more, from double disadvantaged to double advantaged. This also acts as the character's reach. Stand range is measured from 1, 5, 10, 20, and 30 feet plus from E to A, and this is the distance that the stand can travel from the user. The numbers used for strength, durability, and stand power and durability are also used when determining damage dealt by attacks. Damage calculation is performed as follows. When attack is performed, the attack's damage is subtracted from the target's durability stat. The outcome is what is subtracted from the target's HP, and HP is always treated as 50 by default. If the attack is a sneak attack and the target fails a perception check, then the attack's damage is subtracted directly from the target's health. If the target fails a durability check for the attack, then their durability is treated as half its original number for this attack only. If the attack target's durability is higher than the attack's damage, then no damage is taken whatsoever. I think this calculation system helps to keep battles simple yet effective when dealing with many different party members or enemies. Alright, next I want to talk about the items. Items in a player's inventory are split into 4 different areas of focus: weapons, armor, tools, and aid. Weapons are items meant for battle, armor is any item that can be worn by a character, tools are any items that don't fit any of the other categories, and aid is any item that is used to restore player health. Weapon strength and armor durability are calculated with the numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, and 12. And these numbers are added to a player's strength or durability, specific area of the body for armor, when used or worn. Also, armor weight affects the user's speed and durability rolls, with heavy armor, which is 12, gives a disadvantage in speed and advantage in durability, while light armor, 1, gives advantage in speed and disadvantage in durability. Firearms have their own power based on the caliber of the bullets being fired. Small arms are measured as 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12. Medium arms are 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. And large arms are 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. For those curious, and because a friend wanted to do this one time, cannons are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Guns are classified as weapons, and ammo is classified as tools, specifically. Each full clip of ammo is considered to be an item in and of itself. When a campaign is started, each player can select their full armor set, 1 weapon, and 2 other items, either a tool or aid. Player storage is based on the character's strength stat, which is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 pounds, going from double disadvantage to double advantage. Next we have actions, which there are 3 different types of actions that can be taken during combat. First is primary actions, which make up the majority of character's moveset, since it is any action that isn't delegated as a bonus action or a reaction. Primary actions can only be performed once per turn and only on the user's turn. Next is bonus actions. These are minor actions that can be performed quickly and without much focus. These can be performed once per turn, regardless of primary action usage, but only on the user's turn. Lastly is reactions, which only activate in response to specific actions on the user. Like the name suggests, these can only be activated on other players' turns, or unless certain conditions have been met. Attacks are primary actions that have many specifications and are often unique to each character. The specifications are range, direction, damage type, damage, stat used, requirements, number of targets, effect, and a basic description. Range is the maximum distance the attack can travel from the user in feet, or by example of an attack activation, like punches would be the user's range, and some abilities activate on contact. Direction is the area around the user that the attack affects. This is often given through small diagrams showing the general area relative to the user. Damage type is the type of bodily harm an attack can cause on a target. Blunt, cutting, pierce, burn, freeze, electrocution, and corrosion. Damage is the amount of destructive force an attack is capable of. This is usually just the user's strength or the stand's power stat, but can have modifiers depending on the attack. Stat used is which of the user's stats are tested on the success check to see if the attack goes through or not. Requirements are any necessities for the attack to go through, such as an attack needing a specific weapon, needing a stand, or a counter of some kind. Number of targets is simply the amount of people that can be affected by an ability all at the same time. Effects are any other ways an attack can affect the target, user, or environment. And here are a few examples based on some moves used throughout the series by protagonists. Sunlight Yellow Overdrive. Reaches range, direction is in front of the user. Damage type is blunt and Hamon. Damage is the user's power stat. Stat used is the user's speed. Number of targets is 1 to 3. And the requirement is that it uses 3 Hamon counters. And a basic description would be a powerful barrage of punches that show the resolve and power of the user. Clacker Volley has a range of reach plus 3 feet. Direction around front of user. Damage type is blunt. Damage is user's power plus weapon's power. Stat used is user's power. Number of targets is 1 to 5. Requirements is uses a pair of clacker weapons. And a description would be a sporadic flurry of swings from a clacker weapon to attack from a wide range. Last is Star Platinum the World. The range is global, direction is everywhere, and the effect is all characters except the user cease the ability to move or act. The user can then act freely for 1d6 turns. Stat used is the user's stamina. Number of targets is all. Requirements is a standard action, and it cannot be used again for the same number of turns as was used in stop time. An ability often considered the strongest, this skill is learned from a mortal enemy. Now, I want to give you a few examples of characters to show how character creation can play out and how a character sheet, I guess, might look. 2 of these are based on characters from a campaign that I played with friends a while back while I was testing this out, and the other one's just freebie. Name is Credence, race is Vampire, class is Fighter, level 3, and their stats are Power Advantage, Speed Double Advantage, and Durability Disadvantage, Stamina Disadvantage, and Precision Double Advantage, with their power being 20, Durability 10, range 3 feet. Intelligence is Advantage, and their Perception is Advantage. Their inventory, which can hold 40 pounds, is Medical Tape, which is 1 pound, Gorilla Muscles, which is 20 pounds, and 2 blood packs, with each being 2 pounds. Their armor is Head, which is a top hat, which is a 2, Body Champion's Belt, which is an 8, Legs Boxer's Boots, which is 2, and their over is none. Age, height, and weight is 32 at the time of death, 6'8", and 250 pounds. And their actions are Vaporizing Freezing Punch, Range Reach, Direction in front of user, Damage type Blunt, and Freeze. Damage, user's power, stat used, user's power. Number of targets, 1 part of a person. Requirements only usable by vampires. And description is a strong jab that flash freezes part of a person that it hits. Next is Muscle Grafting, range is self, and the effect is fuses muscle items in the user's inventory to the self, either increasing reach by 4 feet or increasing user's power by half the muscle's weight. The stat used is Intelligence. Requirements is uses 1 muscle item in user's inventory. The description is a horrific fusion of muscles that makes the user even more terrifying. Their last move is Vaporizing Freezing Rush. The range is Reach, direction is in front of user, damage type Blunt and Freeze. Damage is user's power stat used is user's speed. Number of targets is 1 to 3, and the requirement is only usable by vampires. And the description is a powerful barrage of punches that freezes a target body half over. Next we have Jackson Custard, race is human and a Haman user of level 2. Stats are Power Advantage, Durability Advantage, Precision Advantage, with their power being 20, durability being 20, and range is 3 feet. Intelligence is double advantage, and their charisma is disadvantage, and their resolve is advantage. Their inventory, with a maximum of 40 pounds, they're holding a hand cannon, which is 30 pounds, with a strength of 30, and 5 feet long, and a cannonball, which is 10 pounds. Their armor is head, soldier's cap, which is a 2, body is soldier's jacket, which is an 8, legs are ripped pants, which is a 1, and their over is a tattered cloak, which is also a 1. Age, height, and weight is 35, 5 foot 11, and 210 pounds. Their actions are Destruction Cannon, which is a range of 150 feet. Direction is in front of the weapon. Damage type is blunt, and the damage is the weapon's power. The stat used is the user's precision. Number of targets is 1 to 4. Requirements needs a cannon and 1 cannonball, and loading takes 1 primary action. The description is a powerful blast from a cannon that destroys all in its path. Next is Cannon Swing, with a range of weapon length. Direction is in front of user. Damage type is blunt. Damage is the user's power. Stat used is the user's power. Number of targets is 1 to 2, and requirements is that it uses a cannon to attack. The description is the user swings their cannon like a massive baseball bat. Lastly is Poison, a human and stand user of level 2. And their stats are Power, double advantage, range disadvantage, Speed, double advantage, durability disadvantage, and their precision is advantage. Power of 25, durability of 10, and a range of 1 foot. Charisma is advantage, and perception is advantage. Their inventory, with a max of 50 pounds, is a long sword, which is 20 pounds, 8 in power, and 4 feet long. The sheath for said sword is 5 pounds, and a week-old sandwich, which is 1 pound, and has an effect of giving plus 5 HP. Their armor is head, not applicable, body, light oriental plating, which is 2, legs, cloth pants, which is 1, and their over is none. Age, height, and weight, 27, 5 foot 8, and 150 pounds, and their stand is Sentinel, which is utility. The ability is, when the sword cuts a target, their most recent wound will open up and cause them equal damage. The stand stats are Power B, 40, Speed C, Range D, 5 feet, Defense E, 10, Precision A, and Potential D. Their actions are Sentinel Swing, which is range of weapon length, direction around front of user, damage type is cutting, damage is the stand's power, and the stat used is the user's speed. Number of targets is 1 to 3, and the requirements are stand attack and weapon attack. The description is, this wild swing of slashes from a powerful sword can slice down most enemies. Their next move is Sentinel Stab, with a range of weapon length, direction in front of user, damage type cutting, damage is the stand's speed, and the stat used is the user's precision. The number of targets is 1 part of a person's body. Requirements is a stand attack and a weapon attack. And the description is, this is a precise stab of 1 target or part of a target. Alright, now, after about 23 and a half pages of notes and roughly an hour of recording, I think I've gotten across the ideas of character creation and some of the combat capabilities for this ramshackle system I made out of 95% fan passion and 5% caffeine. I've play tested a couple of short 1 or 2 day campaigns with some form of this system. They've turned out to be pretty fun for me and my buddies, so I hope that maybe you might want to play it with your friends and see if there's any way that I can improve or to make it more fun. To be perfectly honest, I think this system could be too simple, especially if you intend to play a longer campaign, but since JoJo normally tells its stories in shorter arcs, I figured it'd be okay. Combat might also be too simple with the custom attack system at lower levels. This could be circumvented by having the player start with more unique attacks, but I'd have to test that out to prove its effectiveness. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to tell me about them, because I would love for this game to be strengthened by the community, make it the best we can together. Be like a group project for us all. Alternatively, I would also love to hear any stories that come out of your campaign if you decide to have one, since I know these can end up in some really bizarre places relative to the outset. After all, I think I've finally said my piece. You can do all that YouTube stuff if you want to, like smashing the sub button and clicking the like bell or whatever. I've got some more game concepts that I'm working on, and a fun world building project that I'm I just finished up today the rough touches on. I'm going to start scripting that out, I think, in a little bit. And I'll get the art for that. I'm going to have to do the art for this one, too, because my process is weird. But, yeah, I hope you liked it, you know. Let me know how you... Let me know how you think the video went, anything like that, you know. Comments are there. You can use them, unless you don't want to. It's all fine by me, really. But, for all that being said, I think I'm done. So I'm going to go on and work on the other stuff. So I'll see you later.